Hey, my name is Beck. Welcome to Mooney Reads. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my June TBR. As many of you probably already know, June is Pride Month, so a lot of my reading is going to be centered on that. I'm taking a part in quite a few different readathons and things like that throughout the month. I'm also only going to be reading books by trans authors, with just a couple of exceptions. The one real exception to that is going to be Moving Politics by Deborah Gould, which I've been working on for a good while. I intended on finishing it in May, and that absolutely did not happen. So I'm going to let myself work on reading this throughout the month of June. Now, I know I've talked about the fact that I want to change up my TBR and to be a little bit more read as I go. I will probably start more of that next month. This month, there's just a bunch of really cool stuff going on, and May was a super stressful month, so I needed to have the illusion of having control over stuff, and sometimes that manifests itself as building really intricate TBRs and redoing them several times. So now I have something to show you all. So far as the readathons that I'll be participating in, I've actually got 6 different ones that I'm doing. 2 of those are month-long, and then the other ones are just pieces of the month. The first one that I'm going to be talking about, I'm actually helping host, and that is BookstagramPRIDE. We have a bingo sheet that I'll be following for some of the books on my TBR. We also have daily Instagram prompts, and I will be trying to do as many of those as possible, so definitely check out my Instagram if you're interested in more book recommendations. On top of that, we're doing 2 different read-alongs. The first is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi, which is a fantasy YA novel. We'll be reading that from June 1st to June 12th. The second book is a nonfiction, and that is Trans Like Me by C.N. Lester, and we'll be reading that from the 15th to the 26th. So definitely check out the links in the description for more information on that, and to know who the other hosts are to be able to follow them. The other month-long readathon that I'll be participating in is Read It Queer, which is put together by Eloise Wrights. There are several writing prompts. For that, she put together a number of book prompts, and I will be following some of those with the books that I've chosen. The rest of the readathons that I'm going to be involved in are a week or 2 long. The first is the Queer Lit Read-A-Thon, which starts on the 31st of May and goes to June the 5th. For that read-along, there's a bingo sheet. There's also a group read, although I won't be getting to that particular group read. The next readathon that I'm going to participate in is 2 weeks long. It runs from the 1st to the 14th, and it is the only readathon that I'm participating in that's not explicitly queer, and that is the Feel Goodathon. It's focused basically on reading books that you love and practicing self-care. So some of the books that I've chosen do follow some of their prompts, but a lot of their prompts actually involve what you're doing while you're reading. So I didn't pre-plan that because that seems like something that I should just kind of feel out as I go along. The next 2 readathons that I'm doing both run from the 8th to the 14th. So I tried to find books that kind of fit both of those readathons. One of those is Read Your Gaze, which is put together by Boston Books. For this, I think they choose a different theme every round, and for this one it is Queer Scouts. So each prompt that you do will earn you a different badge, kind of like a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout type of thing. There is also a group read for Read Your Gaze, and that is Case and Callender's newest book, Felix Ever After, and I am so sad that I cannot participate in that group read. I am really interested in getting that book, but there are just so many good new books, I just don't have enough money to get all of them, so unfortunately I'll be sitting that one out. And the final readathon that I will be doing is Gaze Gone By, which is put together by Gina from Be Aware of Books. This readathon is a little bit more focused on older LGBT books, and there's also a bingo sheet for that. There is one more readathon that I'm interested in. I'm not necessarily going to be able to follow all of the prompts or anything, but Read Caribbean is something that has been set up to celebrate Caribbean Heritage Month, and for that I'll be reading at least 1 book by a Caribbean author. If I can find more trans or non-binary Caribbean authors that I can easily access their books, I may add more, but for the moment I know that I have at least 1. So now that we have all of the readathons that I'm going to be attempting to participate in, I'll talk about the actual books that I'll be doing for each of them. So I started out filming this video and I talked about each book and then talked about what prompts each fulfilled, but if I do that it's probably going to take forever and I don't actually know if that's interesting for everyone. So I'm just going to talk about each one of these, and in the description I'll put which prompts they fulfill with which readathon. So to start off with, I'll be reading Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. I don't have the physical book with me at the moment. It is currently in the mail somewhere. So I'll be getting that soon. Pet is a YA fantasy novel that follows this little girl who has found out basically that monsters are real. I'm not totally sure of the whole thing, but it looks like a super interesting read. I've heard nothing but good things about it. Next, I have Our Dreams at Dusk, Volume 3. I have read the first two and really enjoyed them. Each one of these books follows a different person who is involved in this LGBT drop-in center. You get to see a little bit of their life, and what they're struggling with at the moment. I've heard that volumes 3 and 4 get a little bit more intense so far as transphobia and homophobia are concerned, so I'm not really sure totally what to expect, but I've really enjoyed the series so far overall. The next book that I plan on reading is Queer Heartache by Kit Yan. This one is going to be a reread. I actually looked at Queer Heartache alongside Feminine Public for an Instagram post recently, and I realized that it has been a really long time since I've actually sat and read Queer Heartache. So I'm going to be fixing that by reading it this month. This is a book that focuses on being trans and being queer, as well as growing up Asian American and poor. The next book that I have on my TBR is Trans Love, an anthology of transgender and non-binary voices. This book focuses on many different kinds of love, from romantic love to familial love to chosen family. This book looks really wonderful. Just the whole premise of this sounds like something that I need in my life. In theory, I will read all of these for the Queer Lit Read-A-Thon. I may take my time a little bit more with Pet since I don't technically have to have it done for the group read until the 12th though. So this next section of my TBR I will be focusing on between the 8th and the 14th of the month. And the first one of those is Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi. This is a fiction book that has some magical realism involved in it. It focuses on this person who I believe is in the process of immigrating, but it also says a whole lot about gender as well as trauma. This looks like a really wonderful book. I've been excited to read it forever and just haven't gotten to pick it up. So this month is going to be the month of Akwaeke Emezi novels, and I'm here for it. The next book that I'll be talking about is Queen of the Conquered by Case and Callender. I will be reading this partly for Read Caribbean. I believe this would be considered Afrofuturism. This is a fantasy novel, and it looks like a lot of elements in the novel are inspired by people living in the African diaspora. This looks like a super interesting book. I've had it for a good little while. Even though I can't have Felix Ever After, I can at least read one of Case and Callender's other books. The next book that I'm going to be reading for this portion of the month is Christine Jorgensen's Autobiography. For those of you who don't know, Christine Jorgensen was one of the first Americans to have a highly publicized sex reassignment surgery, or what we would call now a gender affirmation surgery. She was talked about really widely in newspapers, she got to be on some talk shows, and she put out her own autobiography. So I got a copy just to see what her experience was and what it was like to sort of be trans within the time. Of course, hers is going to be a far more privileged trans experience than most trans people in the United States at the time. And the final book that I really want to read before the 14th is Trans Liberation by Leslie Feinberg. This is a series of essays and speeches that Z gave on the topic of trans liberation. This was published in 1998, so we kind of get the perspective that was there probably in the late 80s and through the 90s. I've been really looking forward to reading more of Leslie Feinberg's stuff. I read Stone Butch Blues in January and was just absolutely in love. Honestly, I recently bought my own copy of it. I'm actually going to put the link for that in the description because it was super hard to find a copy that was a reasonable price. But before Z died, they actually put it out for free for everybody. So the new edition, you can just click on it and read it, but they also have a version that you can get for like at print price, so it's a little less than $20 if you just want to get a hard copy. So if I end up deviating from my TBR, it's probably going to be to reread Stone Butch Blues. Next on my list I have Trans Like Me, which I've already mentioned because it is one of the group reads for Insta Pride. We're going to start this on the 15th and read it until the 26th. This is part memoir, part journalism, and cultural studies. I absolutely adore this book. I actually use it in my gender studies classes, certain chapters of it anyways. The next book that I have on my list is River of Teeth, which I will be listening to as an audiobook. River of Teeth is a Western by Sarah Gailey. I recently read Upright Woman Wanted, and absolutely fell in love with it. So I have high hopes for Sarah Gailey's other books. This is the first part of a duology, I believe. It is an alternative history in which the South embraced hippos as cattle. This was something that was actually considered. So this is an alternate history as though this had actually been done. I'm not too sure about the plot, but I know it's super queer, and I'm excited about it. The next book that I have is another one that is in the mail along with Pet, and that is All Boys Aren't Blue. All Boys Aren't Blue is a memoir that talks about gender and sexuality. I've heard nothing but wonderful things about it, and I'm really looking forward to it. The next book that I have on my TBR is Nobody Passes: Rejecting the Rules of Gender Conformity. This is a gender studies book written by Matilda Sycamore Bernstein. I'm honestly not 100% sure what all to expect from this book. I know they're going to talk about gender and the idea of passing in terms of gender, but some of the stuff that I've read kind of about it seems like it might go beyond gender. So I'm kind of curious if they talk about race or disability or what. They talk about an awful lot, because it is like a over 300 pages long. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this. I have another Matilda Sycamore Bernstein book on my shelf somewhere. It's revolting, but this one is an anthology, and it's people talking about being kind of against assimilating into kind of normative cishet lifestyle. So I'm expecting something similarly radical from this book, and I'm super stoked about it. Next, I plan on reading one of Tikva Wolf's comics. Tikva Wolf is queer and polyamorous and writes that into their comics. I've actually got one on my TBR for May as well, so I'll probably end up finishing that one, and then choosing one of their other collections to look into for June. Next, I have Trans Power by Gina Roche, which is a series of interviews from various activists within the trans community. They talk about trans identity and how they find power or how they become empowered. This is one that I've been looking forward to for a while, and I think this is probably the most appropriate book for Pride Month that I have on this list. The final book on my TBR I don't have with me because it actually doesn't come out until June 2nd, but I have pre-ordered it, and that is Beyond the Gender Binary by Alok Vaid Menon. This short book talks a whole lot about gender. I don't 100% know what to expect, but I adore Alok, so I know that it's going to be great. They're actually putting together donations to try to send as many free copies of this book as they can to LGBT youth. So I'm going to put in the link where you can look to pre-order or to order a copy for an LGBT youth who can't afford one themselves. So these are all the books that I plan to read for this month. Honestly, my original list had about 6 more books, so if by some miracle I'm actually reading a whole lot, I will also pull from those as well. I kind of felt the need to add more just because I could. However, next month in July there's actually a readathon specifically for trans books, the Transathon. So I've told myself that it's okay that I didn't put like 20 books on this TBR because I'll be able to put some in there as well. Not that I can't just read the books anytime that I want. I've had a hard time kind of telling myself to chill out because I know I'm not going to read 20 books anyways. But I hope you enjoyed hearing about some of these. Maybe you can pick a couple of them up as well. Definitely, if you have an Instagram, join us over at BookstagramPRIDE 2020 when you're reading queer books this month. In the comments below, let me know what books you're planning on reading for Pride. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Bye.